We always begin with principle. And the principle is you are one with the power and the presence and the love of God. There is no original sin. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing missing in you. You came with everything. And you've come to participate with it so that you can set it free as your life and your unfolding destiny. Our theme of the month is on living the surrendered life. And when we talk about living the surrendered life, we're not talking about acquiescing to negative circumstances. We're not talking about giving over to negative conditions or situations and just throwing in the towel and saying, oh, I surrender. We're not talking about the wartime articulation of surrender, which means I give up, I wave the white flag and say, you win, I lose. No, we're not talking about that kind of surrender. We're talking about that deep soul-abiding surrender where you are yielding to the next stage of your own unfolding, where you are surrendering to the infinite good that is within you that wants to know itself as your very life and being. We're talking about the kind of surrender that allows for the depth of your being to be set free, that you may live outside of your present paradigm, outside of your present way of thinking, and outside of your present way of seeing. In other words, we want you to step into the awareness that there is a world outside of your present perception, and that you may be using a lot of energy to survive in the present world that you're living in, created by your perception and created by the collective agreement of that world, so that you basically are living in a self-made prison, not merely a prism of light shining through you, but a prison of perception. We want to step out of that. And do you realize that there's good beyond you right now that you are blind to? You can just think back over your life and begin to remember moments in which you stepped into your greatest potential and you began to live aspects of your life that you didn't even know existed. I think about Agape sometimes, and I think about the living room experience where I had a few people in my living room and we were visioning Agape International Spiritual Center before the word international was even a part of it. And many things that have come to pass that we've had an opportunity to participate in was beyond our perception at that particular time. I think about working with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, on a few occasions, facilitating synthesis dialogues. I think about having the opportunity to meet and greet and give Nelson Mandela a wonderful Season for Nonviolence Award. I think about working with Sri Ariyaratne in Sri Lanka, the individual that helped end the caste system in Sri Lanka, by the way, and developed a wonderful Savodia movement that assists on a grassroots level, people having their needs met across the board in Sri Lanka. I think about my ability and my willingness to work with him over the years. I think about so much that I've had an opportunity to participate in that I didn't even know existed at the time that we were sitting in my living room. It was beyond my perception at that particular time, and more is to come, and more is to come for you because you are an infinite being. You think about it like this. The baby chick is in an egg, and that chick has all of its needs met. It has the food, the sustenance for its survival. It has the outer shell for its protection. It has enough room for it to be snugly and comfortable. But then something begins to happen. That baby chick begins to grow. It begins to use all of its sustenance. It begins to pollute its environment. And if it would have human consciousness, it might say, God, please give me a larger egg. But instead, the instinct inside that baby chick allows it to peck and peck and peck. And as it opens up that egg, it steps into a world that it didn't even know existed. We are invited to step into a new world through the power of surrender. We've polluted our environment. We're growing as a species and on the brink of midwife of another state of consciousness. And we are here to embrace that vibrational frequency within us and to surrender to the next stage of our own unfolding within a deep and abiding trust that we live in a progressive universe and a presence that is never an absence and a presence that never compromises nor contradicts its own nature. This is what we're invited to be about, on living the surrendered life. Living the surrendered life means that we are not get-centric, we are growth-centric. So many people are get-centric. They have come to be hypnotized by a consumerism and materialism and operating from a sense of lack and limitation and not enoughness. They spin their wheels trying to get so much whatever they're trying to get in order to make themselves feel happy. That's not fulfillment, that's fulfillment. And that's what's ending right now. We're ending a sense of fulfillment so that we can step as a species into fulfillment, beginning with the premise that everything we can want and hope for and desire, we already have loaded and coded within every cell and every space between the cells of our being. And so we want to live a life of surrender to this and the abiding trust that we live in a progressive universe and that the presence, which is never an absence, is here, is now. You see. And so we have helpful hints today around this dynamic of surrender. It begins right here, right now. It begins right here, right now, right here, right now. Feel a dynamic trust that comes with intention. You know, the book of the month is a book about intention by one of our great teachers here, great practitioners, Kim Stanwood Terranova. And we were coming to understand, as you've heard me say over the years, that so many people live from an intention deficit disorder. They have no intention. And so what happens is when you don't establish intention, and we're going to break that down for you in a second, when you don't establish intention, that means the world of effects and circumstances and conditions determine your reaction throughout the course of the day. That's becoming a slave to the world of appearances. You don't want to live a life of reaction. You want to live a life of response. Responding from the depth of your being and your connection with the presence of God. So you want to establish an intention every single day of your life until that intention becomes subjectified. It becomes such a part of you, you don't even think about it anymore. You want to intend to grow, develop, and unfold. Growth-centric, not get-centric. A growth-centric awareness where you're living to become more, never less than your true self every single day, so that you're not living to just change the external world while you remain the same. That's called stagnation. That's called hell. You are living so that the next great vision and version of yourself continues to reveal itself as a way of life. Now, if in fact you embrace growth-centric living, and you say to yourself, I surrender to the next stage of my own unfolding. I don't know what it is. I can't see it because it's outside of my present paradigm. I can feel it within me sometimes as a divine discontent. I can feel it within me sometimes as a point of inspiration pulling me. I can feel it. I don't know what it is yet. Yet I know that this presence, which is never an absence, is for the highest and best within me. I yield to it. I surrender to it. I participate in it. I say yes to it. And I establish an intention. I'm intending to become more of my greater yet to be. Then what happens is I become available to the highly charged thoughts of the infinite. That's called inspiration, by the way. I begin to be available to that wisdom and that guidance and that direction that's coming from the mind and heart of the infinite. And I am pulled by a great vision of possibility that's lodged within me, but I have to participate with it. Now what I just said right there, that's important. That's a talk all of its own, because humanity is at the apex of one form of evolution and the beginning of another point of evolution, the apex of the evolution where you basically evolve by circumstances and conditions that push you to evolve, to the next point of evolution where we consciously participate in our own unfolding through spiritual practice on a daily basis. So we're not waiting for conditions to push us. We're pulled by the North Star of our own being, saying there's so much more within you that wants to come forward, and I am embracing it. I'm saying yes to it, even if I can't see it, but I feel it until I encounter it. Intention. Very, very important. You know what else intention does? Intention allows you to not be pulled hither and yon. I've always wanted to say that, hither and yon. Hither and yon. Anyway, I've said it, I won't say it again. Now, you're not pulled by circumstances. You're not pulled by manufactured fear. You know that individuals can be absolutely controlled if they're in fear. If people that are in fear, they can be controlled. Get in this line, do this, walk this way, do this, don't do that. Oh, okay. Stop the nonsense. You're an emanation of God, you see. And so you don't want to be pulled by fear, whether it's manufactured or whether it's some things you should really be prudent about. You want to be pulled by a vision of possibility, health and wholeness and well-being that's loaded and coded within you, so that you're not just being pulled any which way by any force that would want you to be in fear, so that you may be controlled easily and effortlessly. If there's going to be some mandates coming out by our governmental officials, the mandate should be everyone should have vitamin C every day. Everyone should have vitamin D every day. Everyone should have vitamin A every day. Everyone must be mandated to do some kind of exercise, so that the immune system becomes so strong and so powerful that it gets to be used for what it's used for, to handle viruses and bacteria and microbes, you see, so that we're not compromised. We want that kind of mandate. Knock on somebody's door and say, have you exercised today? Did you get your vitamin D? Did you get your vitamin C? Did you get your vitamin A? Are you eating nutritiously? Are you cutting sugar out of your diet? If you have not, stop putting that stuff in your mouth and then blaming some kind of virus for your sickness. You need to stand strong and vibrant and take absolute responsibility for yourself, and stop allowing yourself to be compromised by bad habits. You see? Anyway, intention is the beginning of that. And then the other hint is practice. Every speaker that comes up on this platform will mention the word practice in some way or form or another. They'll mention prayer. They'll mention affirmation. They'll mention meditation. They'll mention life visioning. They'll mention study. They'll mention fellowshipping with high-minded people. That doesn't mean howdy, and pious. It means individuals who are growth-centric, individuals who are available to accessing dimensions of their own being that are higher than where they are presently living. Individuals who are being pulled by a vision, individuals who are having conversations about potential and possibility. Doesn't mean they're better than anyone. It just means that they develop a certain practice and certain habits, and that their life is about growth, development, and unfoldment, and circulating their gifts, talents, and capacities. So we end up practicing in that way so that we begin to discover something. This is what happens. When you practice, you start to have a relationship with the presence. Now, this is very important. Some people have a belief in God, but do you have the belief of God? You can't have the belief of God unless you have a relationship with God. So it begins with belief. Belief leads to practice. Practice leads to insight. Insight leads to embodiment. Embodiment means to action. Action leads to a way of life. And so you can't just get stuck in, I believe in God. I believe God is everywhere. I believe God is good all the time. Yeah, that's sweet. That's where you begin. But then you have to have a relationship, which means you've got to get down in your spiritual practice on a regular basis until the veil are wiped clean from your eyes and your perception, and you begin to feel the presence that is never an absence. Ooh, you feel the presence that is never an absence, and you start to have an encounter and then a relationship with the presence. And when you have a relationship with the presence, therein lies your trust. But once you have a relationship with it, I'm talking about an encounter, you start to have a trust, because you know the presence of God is not wishy-washy. It's not sometimey. It doesn't have chosen people. It's not waiting for magic words to flow out of your mouth before it blesses you. It's in the blessing business. It's always blessing. Your words and your affirmations and your power statements and your prayers are not doing anything to God. They're doing something to your own awareness, that you may receive the blessing that's always being given. You see?